Great. So it looks like we are about to get started. For those of you who just joined, I am Nikki Maritz. I'm the CEO of IBTC, and I will be your host tonight on this panel discussion. These are all fancy words. We're having a conference and we're having a panel discussion, but it's really words that we borrow from a previous era. It feels like when we still had conferences and with a panel discussion, sitting in comfortable chairs up on the stage, and we don't do that anymore. We now do this. Okay, so the purpose of this session is to get you closer to employers and recruiters, both locally and globally. Just move these over. Hang on one second. We specifically call this the Get Connected Conference because we want our students in South Africa who are studying a global qualification to feel more connected with others on a global platform. We are so isolated from the world sometimes, and even more so in the time of COVID. We really felt we needed to be reminded that we are studying a global qualification, and with that, the benefit that it makes us very transportable and we can work anywhere. So hence this Get Connected platform. Okay, so let's not delay any further. With me, I have Pete Whitehouse, who heads up CA Financial Appointments, a local recruitment agency specializing in the placement of CIMA students and CGMAs. Pete, I was actually just about to say, we've got Pete Whitehouse. Pete, what do you do?
Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, it's quite simple. Thanks, Nikki. I've been in this game. I left financial management about more than 25 years ago. I am CIMA. I got sick of the debits and credits, so we moved into something a little bit different. But I think the big thing is working within the financial recruitment industry is that we understand CIMA. We've also found that the consultants
No, wait. This is just the hi, everybody.
Oh, no.
No, this is just the hi, everybody.
Oh, no,
next, I just want to say,
Nikki.
No. I must put
Hello, Nikki.
Hello, Pete. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Do you head up CA Financial Appointments? Is that right?
Yes. I founded it. We founded 25 years ago, and I've been heading up that amongst other African brands.
And you're a local recruitment agency specializing in the placement of CIMA students and CGMAs.
Yeah, CA Financial Appointments. Yeah. Fantastic.
Okay, Nuan Barker, Badunye, what do? You work at Grove.
Yeah, I work at Grove. I've been with Grove for about 8 years. I head up the finance team, finance and legal teams actually. Yeah, we're in the tech space. We essentially in a space of like selling other people's technology. So that's really what Grove does. I'm focusing on cybersecurity at the moment. Like I said, been with the company for 8 years, heading up the team for about the last 3.5 years.
Excellent. You know, when anybody says I'm in the tech space, it already inspires a bit of awe. Cal, hi. Cal, are you there? You want to put your camera on and just say hi and tell us who you are?
Yeah, I'm getting a bit of an error message on the camera. It's saying I can't stop my video because the host has stopped it.
Oh, really? Because I did see you initially. Maybe the technical team can look at that and see why they are.
Cool.
Why it's not working. There we go.
I was trying to do something. There we go. Hi all.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. My name's Cal. I'm a business controller for a UK business, or I'm based in the UK. The business is based in Copenhagen. So yeah, I'm here to speak today a little bit about my experience and why to me CIMA is a truly global qualification.
Excellent, thank you. Are you in Copenhagen or you're in the UK?
No, I'm based in the UK, but I've
okay.
As part of working for Ambo, I occasionally get to go over, which is always quite nice.
Do they have Danishes?
They do, yeah, very good ones. Yeah.
Okay, Eugene. Hi, Eugene. How are you? Oh, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Well,
no worries. I am good. I'm good. You are the general manager at Blaze Point. What do you do there?
Correct. So BlazePoint is one of South Africa's largest retail development companies. So we do the design and planning as well as manufacturing and fitting out of several of South Africa's large retail chains, as well as hotels such as the Protea hotels throughout Africa. We also have other business units such as a powder coating business. We've got an electrical company, and we've also recently acquired a signage company. So basically, I oversee all the business units, and I basically pivot to wherever the business needs me, whatever the needs are within the company at any given point in time. And tonight I'm going to talk about how the CIMA qualification helped me overcome very difficult economical times in the company, pre-COVID as well as during COVID. So I'm looking forward to sharing.
Awesome. I saw you were into real recession as well. And I think a lot of what she said resonated with your story.
Mm-hmm.
And did you hear I gave a little bit away about your story when I spoke about walking down the aisle?
Yes, no, definitely.
I hope you don't hold that against me.
No, not at all. I think that's the one thing that we'll hear over and over tonight, as well as just from CGMAs out there, is that it truly is a T-shaped qualification. So it is not a tunnel vision qualification. It's really a very broad qualification that allows you to fully understand and integrate every aspect of business.
Excellent. And then Botwe, how are you doing?
Hi, Nikki. I'm all right,
Hi.
thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. You still at in education? I'm just asking you because I jokingly say it's such a hard place to be, and I always just have to check that you're still sticking it out. What do you do, Botwe?
I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the University of Venda. It's an interesting space to be in. And you're inspired by the tech, gentlemen. I hope I also inspire you, Nikki, with my higher education stint.
Education is hard, guys. Yes, totally inspired.
Yes.
Okay, great. So welcome all of you. Guys, everybody who's on here, I can promise you we've got some very good stories. I'm going to start with Pete. Pete is very keen to explain to you. Pete is for me, the link between the CIMA student or the CIMA member, which term I will use interchangeably. So often, hey Pete, you can appoint people who are still maybe at management level or strategic level. You don't have to be a CGMA. So you are the link between the people who are looking for work and those who want to employ people. And you're not new to the game, I understand. How did the employment landscape change for CIMA students and CGMAs over the last, 25 years?
Yeah, okay, Nikki. Yeah, thanks for that. I think that what we need to understand is that different recruitment consultancies focus on different kind of levels, and that your students need to position themselves correctly when they are looking for employment. And obviously, the more qualified, the more qualifications they have behind them, the more marketable they are to the roles which they would want to end up in. But let's come back to the employment landscape. As I started off by saying, is that as a CIMA, it was hugely disappointing for us 25 years ago, where we called our company CA Financial Appointments. We couldn't call ourselves CIMA Financial Appointments because no one really knew what the CIMA qualification was. And the main reason for that is that in South Africa, there was a unified accounting body that was set up in the 1980s, and they worked really, really hard in bringing together SAICA. And that SAICA became the buzzword. It became the benchmark for financial qualifications. And so much so that today about 25% of directors on the top 200 companies are CAs. And that's something which we've been fighting against for a long time. Yes, there is reciprocal membership agreement. Clearly, your CIMA past finalists can write the CA exam. Obviously, they have to go and do the articles if they can spend 3 years doing the same thing over and over. And the same thing with your CA. Your CA can write, once they've completed the articles, they in turn can write the case study of the CA exam and do the correct practical experience to become a SEMA member. But just going back to where we were 25 years ago, when I first started this and where we are now, there's been an unbelievable improvement of the landscape for SEMA. It's very different in that, as was, I caught the last end of the last session, and they were talking about how the good old days, the ads were only CA, CA, CA. Now, if you have a look at most of them, it's CA, SEMA, which is fantastic because that the employers do recognize, and from my point of view, the recruitment agents recognize the skill of the SEMA and how it differs from your traditional CA. Does that help you, Nikki?
Yes, totally. I think also back in the day when also we've been around since 2006, SEMA out of interest has been around in South Africa since 1949. And if you compare that with when SAICA was created in 1980, and it just shows you how much power and legislation can do to what's the word, to set the standard, if you like, and to keep some in and to keep some out. But I thought that was just quite interesting. So we have been around since 2006, and when we started with SEMA, in the landscape, you also never saw an ad that said SEMA and that said CA/SEMA. All the AGMs were students asking about what is SEMA doing for brand recognition and all of that. So a lot have changed in that time. I speak under correction, but I think from that time when I started, we might have been 3,000 or 4,000 SEMA active students, and we now have 15,000. So that's a year, and that is how much it has grown in the last 12 or 13 years. What I also like about what SEMA's approach was at the time, which I thought was very clever, was that they had a multi-pronged approach, as one should have if you want to get anything done, but they had the advocacy and did some lobbying at a legislative level, but then they also specifically had people in roles addressing the CEOs and the CFOs, the C-suite. They addressed the C-suite, the legislatures, and then the HR recruitment companies. To say when somebody asks for a CA, this is how you check, do they really need a CA or do they really need a CGMA? And then with students progressing and becoming qualified, the students then started advocating SEMA themselves. And at some point it pivoted and it grew and it got a lot of momentum. So now it took a lot of people doing a lot of things to get us to the place now where SEMA is increasingly becoming recognized. And we need to continue that drive. The fight's not over, hey, Pete?
Yeah, I think you spot on, Nikki. Just because we were doing finance about 15 years ago, I worked with Samantha from SEMA, and we set up a dedicated SEMA recruitment company, and it was just 15 years too early or 10 years too early. It just wasn't out there. I think if we did that now, it would have a huge following. It has changed, and it's not just because SEMA's got the dedicated office in South Africa. They fought so hard to get the brand recognition. That's SEMA themselves. Then there's also guys like IBTC. You know, when I wrote my final SEMA exams, it was quite a humorous story. The guy flew out from London. I still remember clearly going to his little hotel room in Newlands, huddled around a table for the Saturday and Sunday to be able to get some kind of studying done to be able to write the final SEMA stage 3 as it was in those days. And it's just so different from what you guys are able to offer the potential SEMA students these days. And then if you move it to bring it back to my recruitment side, how does the recruiter push it, and what do we do? Yes, it helps that we've got 10 specialist financial consultants who understand SEMA, who've worked with SEMA, who've driven by SEMA. So that obviously that helps, because a lot of the recruitment consultants still don't know what SEMA is. Then there's also, when we do chat to clients, there are two sides of clients. When we speak to the line managers, those guys know what CIMA is, the financial, because we're dealing with the financial line, that's no problem. It's taken us a little bit longer to work with HR. If HR has had the same job spec for the last 10 years and it says CASA, that's essentially what they're looking for. So that's a bit of a challenge for us to get through the HR gatekeepers. But the more and more that the employers, the actual people working in the organization, what we call the flag bearers, your C-suite guys, the more and more that they are pushing CIMA and asking for CIMA, then it's filtering down to all levels of the organization. And people realize that it is a different qualification, and there are many, many roles which aren't suited to your traditional CA. They're far more suited to us. So we have been pushing, and as everyone's been saying, it is definitely paying off. You know, if I had a number of past finalists, especially in the last few months, which there had been a change in the CA market as well because of the international involvement going after the CA qualification specifically for audit. And they've come in and they've realized that because of COVID, that the CA qualification is international. And there's been a huge number of our recently qualified CAs who are specifically focused on audit, which is perhaps not where the CIMA skill is, that have been pulled out. And that again has created huge opportunities for CIMA in South Africa.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that, Pete. I've also got Botwe here today. Botwe, let me just see. I had a good question for you. You head up a small finance team. You said to me, "Oh, Nikki, I have a small finance team of 62 staff at the university." I don't know, 62 doesn't sound very small to me. But I sometimes think that, as I said, higher education is, I seem to have lost my script. Let me just see, sorry. But you had a very nice story about what your role at the university, what you are trying to do to make the university financially viable in a very tricky environment. With one thing you said that resonated with me is a lot of the funding must come from government, but the government's funds also depleted. Tell me a little bit about what you managed to do and what you are busy doing at the university, and how CIMA's helped you with that.
Great, thanks, Nikki. You're quite correct. Government funding is a key source of revenue for most public universities, in fact, for all public universities. But especially for the so-called historically disadvantaged universities like the University of Venda, we have a huge reliance on government funding. So although we do get the funding, but it's not quite keeping up with inflation, so we're finding that in real terms, we are not quite growing our pot. So I have to manage that while also trying to figure out how to apply my skills to make sure that the finance team that I have is able to help the academy to manage the finances. So I walked into a department that had never had a CFO before. So the way it was structured was just not right. We didn't have properly qualified people in there. So fortunately, with my CIMA studies, I realized very quickly where the gaps were. I was, for instance, able to see that there is a financial decision-making, business partnering vacuum. And already I started thinking around, how do I then fill the vacuum? How do I make sure that the finance team becomes a value-adding team and not just, let's just report numbers? So I went to the market and I recruited an accountant for the reporting of the numbers, which is happy. But then I went and looked specifically for a CIMA, a management accountant, qualified people to actually help me with the finance business partnering. Now, Nikki, the market out there is not easy. It was not easy to actually find these skills, and especially, people who are prepared to go all the way to Thohoyandou and be able to apply those skills. I was able to manage to find one, out of the 3 I was looking for. But the other 2 also had, I think, honors level. So now the way the finance structure interacts with business is starting to change. We are starting to be in the business's face. It is starting to say, how can we help you and how can we add value to what you do? And I credit that all to actually having gone through the CIMA program. You know, it just crystallized it nicely for me, and I was able to put things in perspective.
So I like it when you said when you got there, you realized, okay, there's a lot of gaps and you could spot the gaps. And then in our previous discussion, you said, I needed people who can do the financial reporting. Yeah. Boom. Okay, I got those. Then I realized I needed people who could analyze the reports and those who could then give support to others, to people in different roles, to the decision makers, if you like. And then, do I have it right? Then you started the finance business partner concept. Finance business partner concept. And is that the people in the finance position helping the rest of the business?
That's exactly right. So one of the first things I did was look at the talent I had. I said, what talent do I have? Who can I use to actually start rolling out the finance business partner model? I identified a couple of people, and I actually got some of them to enroll with CIMA because I felt they had the potential. They just didn't quite have the training to be able to actually add the value I was looking for. So I identified those people, and I think one of them is already enrolled. She started, the other one I think will start this year. But then I also went and looked at the people. You know, finance always gets a bad rep, right? So people will go to finance when they want their salaries paid or their suppliers paid.
Or when there's something wrong with their leave.
That's right. That's right. So, besides that, or I want to see how my pension fund is doing. So outside of that, no one really cares. So we are trying to change that narrative, and you're trying to say, hey guys, we may be accountants, but we actually understand business and business processes. Let's help you think through whatever plans you may have in place. So I'm actually in the moment developing a financial model that will form part of this support structure that I want to build in the university, so that we can start the value add. We can start to ask the question, you know, what's your relevance in our lives?
Cool. Now, you know, I say to no one, when anybody says tech, everybody gets excited. Oh, well, I do. So you told me a nice story about technology and science parks. You want to share that with everybody?
Yes. So, you know, I wrote the case study, the 2020 case study, or the 2021 to 2020. And that case study in November, it was about technology parks. So I will admit to everyone in this room today, all 95 of you, that I didn't know what a technology park is. I was aware what Silicon Valley was, and but I didn't quite know what a technological park was. But after going through the case study and going through the exam, I actually identified an opportunity at the university. The university is embarking on a big tech drive at the moment. And I was saying to the CEO who runs that business, he should consider starting up a technological park. It may not be as easy because where we are situated, we're a little bit far from everything. But I felt that perhaps at a smaller scale, he could start something like that. He could start a tech park, he could start even a data center. And these are all the ideas I got from actually going through that case study.
Yes.
And going through
it doesn't have to be the right thing for the university, but the right thing is to consider everything.
That's right.
Is to just say, think about it, look at it. And, also what you're saying reminds me a bit of what Terero said. I don't know if you were in that session, but the value of being a CIMA member is all the things that CIMA does to keep you abreast of what is going on. So, and when I was younger, I didn't really understand. I think, why must I belong? Why must I be a member? And you're just asking me fees and whatever. Whenever I ask you, what is it that I get for those fees? You would have these iffy answers like, you get to have exposure to our body of knowledge or whatever. No, I don't understand the real benefit because I'm younger and I want tangible benefits. But then as I got older, I realized, oh, it actually is all about continuous learning, and it is actually about being able to contribute to a variety of conversations. So if no one talks to you, you can talk with because you know it's a little bit of tech, and when I talk to you, can talk with because it's a little bit educational. When the marketers speak, or when the HR people speak, or when the procurement or the value chain, you know, you can engage with all of those things, and then also you can stay abreast of the latest developments. I used to do that by reading a lot of Harvard Business Review. It's my best magazine. But then I also discovered that CIMA actually does these articles that's a little bit more relevant to specifically what I'm doing. So your technology and science, for example, plays right into that. So thank you very much. I love that. I love that story. I always tell prospective students that CIMA is really in tune with the modern business, and your story just really, I don't know, elucidated that point nicely. So thank you for that. Then I also have Cal with us today. Cal, we've now established, is eating a Danish in the UK, and he works with Ramboll, who loves to employ CGMAs. And Cal, you are a CGMA, and for all our students who are studying a global qualification, then no, not for all of them, but some of them, part of the reason is, or part of the fallback plan is, it is a global qualification. I can study anywhere else in the world. From your perspective, you know, there's a joke. There's a South African, a Brit, and a Chinese walk into an interview room. There isn't really such a joke. My question is, when somebody from South Africa walks into an interview room at Ramboll, would they stand as good a chance as anybody else? What is your view on, you work with a lot of CGMAs from across the world and also some South Africans. What is your view on the employability of the South African CGMA?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the CGMA qualification in the UK speaks for itself, as Pete kind of beautifully illustrated. If you're a CGMA, you have a set of skills that is currently desirable. I had a really good quote during the pandemic from a CFO, and it was something like, whilst all my chartered accountants, my CAs, are doing all the backwards looking things and tell me how I've already performed, my management accountants are telling me how I'm going to perform and helping me to survive through the pandemic. So I think the strength of the qualification speaks for itself. When I first started at Ramboll, we certainly had a few South African CGMAs. I think I mentioned to you as well, my mentor and someone who kind of helped me land where I've landed was South African, and she didn't actually have the CGMA qualification herself, but she was always pushing me to get it. She always said doors didn't open for her because she didn't have that, despite the fact she had decades of experience, amazing experience. There were certain doors that just wouldn't open because she didn't have that CIMA qualification in the UK. So I think the strength of the qualification really speaks for itself, and the global nature of the qualification attracts diverse talent. And I know that when I put out an advert for finance members and staff, they're naturally diverse because of the kind of diverse personalities and the different backgrounds of people that study CIMA. So to answer your questions, yeah, I think South Africans have an amazing chance with a CGMA qualification. It will break down those barriers, help you to get your foot in the door. And hopefully give you the same opportunity that I've had and that many others have had.
Excellent. Can I put you on the spot and ask you, that rumor has it that South Africans, they like to employ South Africans because they're so hardworking. We show up apparently even when it snows. It's just because we don't know we can take a snow day. Is it true?
Yeah,
Are South Africans known for being hardworking?
Maybe maybe you're just not used to snow. I think so, and I think certainly something that I see in South Africans or Africans in general that I don't see in the UK is kind of an entrepreneurship. I think in the UK we're very lucky and we're very privileged, but as a result we have kind of like this path that we just follow, and we don't always think outside the box. Whereas I think something that I've really seen from the South Africans who I've worked with is they bring a lot of colour, and they certainly colour outside the lines and think outside the box, and that's something that I think South Africans bring especially well, and it's something that I really thrive on and pick up on when I work with them.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's, some people call it entrepreneurial, others call it maverick. I think we're very maverick. But a couple of years ago, somebody described it in a way that I thought, oh my God, that just feels so true. They call it the Wild West. It's really the Wild West out here. Boy, it's, yes, I love that. I love that about South Africa, because we are, it's a Wild West, and we have to learn how to do interesting things and be very, very innovative to make our way forward. Cal, you told me a lovely story about how you fell into CIMA and how it changed your life. I really feel that your story will resonate with our audience, and I was hoping you would share that with us today. Tell me how CIMA changed your life and how you happened upon it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up with a single mum, 3 children. So it was a very, very hard upbringing, as I'm sure some people on this call probably can empathise with and have gone through themselves. So we lived below the poverty line. We didn't always know where our next meal was coming from, and it was kind of a hard way to kind of be brought up. Because I was brought up that way, I think I always had a certain passion and a drive that I wanted to break out of that and have a bit of a better life. But there was certainly a time in my life where I thought I'd be stacking shelves for the rest of my life, working in shops. When I finished college, I didn't want to go to uni. It was a lot of money. It was £30,000, 30 grand, and there was nothing that I was really passionate enough to go and spend 3 years and 30 grand on that I feel like I wouldn't maybe half-arse a little bit. So I went into the working world for a little bit, and I worked in retail. I was quite lucky. I got store manager opportunities quite young, so I got a lot of good experience, and I learned what hard work and resilience really was in the workplace. But as I mentioned, I thought I'd be working in shops my whole life, and the South African lady that I mentioned told me about a job with Ramboll, which is a global business, as I mentioned, based in Denmark, but we've got offices in the UK and in South Africa, actually, in Cape Town and Joburg. And she told me about this role and told me about CIMA. So I thought I'd go for it. It sounded like an incredible opportunity, and that was in August 2017 that I started with Ramboll. So I started studying the certificate level qualification through an apprenticeship, completed that in about a year, and then started my professional level also through an apprenticeship and completed that in about 2 years. So I became a chartered accountant in July last year, and it just, and this is no exaggeration, it just changed my life. It has put me in a situation now that I never thought I would ever be in, and with respect to the job that I'm doing, the value that I bring to a company, and then the salary I earn and the life that I have outside of work now. So it really, really opened up doors for me, doors that I never thought would be open to me just because of my background. So I mentioned as well that there was it was a South African lady who pushed me into it, and she always said as well, as I mentioned, she always said, like, get your CIMA qualification, knuckle down, do it, because I didn't have the chance to do it, and because of that I don't always get the opportunities that I kind of want to go for. And there's a lovely proverb that I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with, but it was something that kind of she ingrained in me, and I kind of live by. But it's the if you want to go fast, walk alone. If you want to go far, walk together. And I think that was just really encompasses kind of I think my experience at Ramboll studying CIMA and the value that I see finance people bring. As Botway kind of alluded to, I think we have to be finance business partners now at every level of the business. My direct reports have to partner with the operational side of the business. I partner with the management side of the business, and then my boss will partner with the senior leadership team. So there's that ability to connect now and reach out and translate financial information and turn it into insights and actually support your stakeholders is more important than ever. And that's something that CIMA really gave me, as well as this really rich life now that I never thought I'd have.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing. It's always good to hear. It's good for all of us to hear. So thank you very much. I must say, whenever you say South Africans are your favorite people, I get goosebumps. I guess one can never tire from hearing that. Thank you very much for that. I also have Eugene with me. Eugene, also for me, has a remarkable story about company turnaround and reinventing the company in the time of COVID. Your academic history, Eugene, is also very impressive. I don't really know where to start, but maybe a good point to start is BlazePoint, their turnaround and their growth. I just love that story.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. I love telling the story as much as you love hearing it. So from 2014 to 2018, I was the MD of a relatively large retail development company based in Johannesburg. I also had a couple of smaller businesses, such as a coffee shop, an e-commerce business in the automotive industry, and a few other smaller ones. Then in 2019, BlazePoint, who I'm the GM for now, they actually called me in for a meeting and asked if I would join them as the GM. And the reason why is they were struggling to generate sales revenue. And one of my specialities is business development. So I was with them in 2009 as the head of business development. So they asked me if I'll come back onto the team because they were struggling quite badly. In fact, they were working short time. They were working about 3 days a week and then sending the staff home for the other days. Oh. So as I joined, the first thing I did was grab hold of all the financial statements. I looked at all of the solvency, liquidity, profitability ratios. And it was quite clear to me that the immediate business requirement was sales revenue. So I pivoted into a sales role, something I didn't do in a few years prior to this. I hit the phones and I started quoting on several big box retailers in South Africa. After about 2 months or so, I realized that no deals were closing, even though a lot of quotes were going out. So at that stage, I had to pivot again from sales into a bit of a management accountant role. And what I had to do was benchmark our pricing against that of our main competitors. And after I did this, I noticed that we were probably about 30% more expensive than our competitors. So I took their pricing, I reverse engineered it. So keeping in mind at this stage, what we're doing was mostly interior development, so shop fitting. So we had a steel factory and a wood factory. And steel is quite a commodity. So no other company can get steel for much more than 10, 15% cheaper than what you can. It all comes down to bargaining through larger purchasing, and using the correct suppliers. So by doing some reverse engineering, I realized that the reason a lot of our competitors were so much cheaper is that they insourced powder coating, one of the finishing parts of shop fitting, whereas we were outsourcing this. So as soon as I saw this, I sort of pivoted into operational role. We had a company with qualified structural and mechanical engineers. We actually also had a thermal engineer, even though he wasn't practicing, but on our team. And I got some quotes on a powder coating plant. It was at that stage about $95,000. And I realized that we could actually build our own powder coating plant for about a quarter of that price. So we went ahead and we did it. We didn't have, unfortunately, the company didn't have close to $100,000 to invest at the time. We built it, and our payback period on this was pretty much about 4 months. So as soon as we built or established our own powder coating plant, we were able to reduce our pricing by around 25%. I then also pivoted into a bit of a supply chain role, and I redefined the way that our procurement system works. And through all of these various efforts, I managed to get our prices down by around 30-35%. So we started winning deals very quickly. So within about 6 months, we went from working short time to working overtime. So we managed to procure quite large international clients in a very short space of time. Some of them being the Marriott Hotel Group. So we currently fit out all the Protea hotels. We currently busy with one in Zambia, where I'll be next week project managing. We also land at Sony Dubai, so we do all Sony's work in South Africa, as well as several other companies such as Massmart. We do all the builders' warehouses, Carol Boys, fitting out all their retail stores. So there was quite a lot of fun for me, I must say, stressful as it was, but realizing what the immediate requirement for the business was at times in need, and this was pre-COVID, and having all of the skill sets to look at the company from various different angles. So I could analyze the business health from a financial perspective. I could pivot onto an operational perspective, do what needed to be done, pivot to a sales role, pivot to a marketing role. And I think that's definitely one thing that the CIMA qualification does for all its students. It actually empowers them to see a business, and whether it's one business problem or various business problems, from a multifaceted perspective. So instead of just looking at it from a, say, financial reporting factor and think, we need to improve this ratio. Our days of working capital is only so many. We need to remedy this very quick. CIMA with graduates can say, all right, so our days of working capital are too low. We know we need to fix it. How are we going to do this? What are the operational activities going to be involved? What is our strategy? And CIMA students are also able to not only look inside the business at what are our core competencies, what are our current resources, how do we deliver on our strategies, but they are also equipped with the ability to look at the external environments and see sort of like game theory, how are our competitors going to react to our new strategies, looking at the environment, looking at pestle analysis and Porter's five forces, and just looking at, are we playing in the right sort of space, or do we need to pivot to another space? Do we do this through maybe a market development strategy or a product development strategy? So yeah, I think that if it wasn't for the CIMA qualification, I don't think that I would have been as confident in working in all these various areas within the business. And I also honestly don't think I would have been as efficient or effective. So I must give the CIMA qualification all of the credit for helping me to develop and successfully implement these strategies in such a short span of time at BlazePoint.
And then the doors closed. What happened then?
COVID. So COVID was tragic times for many companies across the globe, and BlazePoint was no exception. One of the biggest clients we had now was Marriott Hotel Group, and we know what happened to all the hotels. We know what happened to all the big box retail stores. They all closed their doors for a good amount of time. And those who didn't close doors, such as the Massmart Group, they simply put the brakes on store development. So they also had to, preserve their resources. So we had several massive projects simply disappear in a matter of 3 weeks. So what we did as soon as this hit us, there was you've got two options. The one is to go and sit on the couch and try and finish Netflix. The second option is to pivot once again into whatever you need to do to adapt or die. In any dire situation, I believe there's always opportunities that prevail. The trick is that you got to be, first of all, positive. Secondly, you got to realize that with every bad circumstance, there is opportunity if you look for it hard enough. And that's exactly what myself and one of the partners at the company did. We started going, within the first week of lockdown, we went onto YouTube and we started watching videos on what's happening at Wuhan. So we were looking for clues of what requirements, what needs are going to develop from this pandemic. Because obviously whatever happens in Wuhan is very likely to carry through to South Africa. And one of the partners was watching a video, and a gentleman walked up to a steel structure on a wall. He put his foot on it, he pressed his foot down, he held his hands out, and he dispensed some sanitizer. So it was a foot operated sanitizer dispenser. And keep in mind, this was 1 week into the pandemic. I don't think anyone even knew what a foot operated sanitizer dispenser was at the time. So we saw this video, and we immediately called a meeting with the other partners and our engineering team at BlazePoint. We hid our cars behind the building because of the tough regulations. And we went inside and we said, this is the idea. We've got all the resources. We've got a steel factory. We've now got a newly built powder coating plant. We've got signage capabilities. We've got the competencies. How do we make this happen? So we left this with the engineering team. The next morning, they called my partner and myself back. We went in there at a fully operational prototype of what we called the sanitation step. So as soon as we saw this product, we knew one thing, that it was quite simple to manufacture. There were a lot of very desperate companies and individuals out there. A lot of them lost their jobs, their livelihoods, a lot of companies closing doors, also looking to pivot and sort of do product diversification. So I knew that our product life cycle was going to be incredibly short on this product. I knew that it would be about 3 months before every second guy with a welding machine in his garage would start manufacturing these foot operated sanitation steps. So we were first, and now we had to be best. So we immediately, what I did was I took a video, and I realized that I cannot sell these on my own. I cannot sell them with my team fast enough. I need to put together a distribution network, which I did. I got 40 resellers together, and I took a little homemade video. A lot of my friends still rip me off with my stomach showing in the video, talking about my COVID diet not being up to standard. And this video pretty much went viral. We started running day shifts and night shifts. We've got several subcontractors involved, and we sold 7,000 of these units within 4 months. We ended up selling a total of 10,000 of these units before bailing and moving back onto our core competencies. So, and along with this, we also sold roughly 7 to 10 million rands worth of complementary products such as sanitizer. So what happened during COVID, when everyone was suffering, and I feel very sorry for a lot of companies, but we actually did better financially than what we do outside of COVID. And today there's not a single mall, a single aisle in a single mall in South Africa where you can walk in and not see one of our original products. They are in all the Steers, the Wimpies, the Fisherways, the Milky Lane, Turn Intended, Tile Africa, you name pretty much any of the big brands. Pick and Pay came way after the fact, but in all of these stores are our sanitation steps. And it's because we realized that when times get tough, you cannot sit down and wait for things to get better. You need to look at the situation, you need to stay positive, take charge, and you need to do what you need to do to make things happen. And today we're out of COVID. I think we're all quite relieved. There's a lot of damage still out there. With our company, we did do quite well. But one thing that the pandemic made us highly cognizant of is that you need to be agile as a company, as an organization, not only in South Africa, in the world. You need to remain agile. And once again, the CIMA qualification, I think, because it focuses, firstly on the finances of a company, it makes you cognizant of not only where your company is now, but the management accounting part of it is very much focused on forecasting. We need to know where we're going, how healthy are we. It also brings in the risk management subject, which allows you to think, what if there's another lockdown? What if something else happens that is detrimental to our industry, our economy, to our globe? What would we do then? And I think the big thing is remain agile, and that's something that CIMA teaches all of its students.
It's a beautiful story of South African resilience and innovation, and I'm sure you've inspired a lot of students now, and thank you for tying it back so nicely to CIMA. Sure, you're going to write the story for a long time. It will be your legacy until you come up with the next big thing. I want to move on to Nuwan. Nuwan, you are in the tech space. And can I say that you are, I was reading what I wrote, like, oh, you are well known for only appointing CGMAs. Is that true? Is that what I got from you? Do you only appoint CIMA students and CGMAs?
Within our team, Nikki, like we've over the last couple of years, we've realized I realized a lot of the guys that I've appointed was CIMA people that studied CIMA. And so that essentially became all the recruiters that we work with, our internal HR team, but also like the external recruiters. Like that's essentially become the norm for us, is to put the ads out as, looking for people that's either studying towards CIMA or already CIMA qualified, depending on the position within the team. So I think that's really something that I've seen the benefit of that in my own life. And I think thinking back to when I started CIMA, years ago, it was actually quite hard to get a place where you can actually get your CIMA practical experience. I was lucky to land a kind of like the article of CIMA qualified partner kind of internship or article clerkship at one of the big 4 here in Cape Town. But it was quite a struggle to actually find someone. So for me, it was kind of just like passing on the opportunity for other people to actually just get the right experience. Like I know what we obviously do at the company and what people need to actually get to the point where they can get that sign off. We wouldn't actually go into the market hiring CIMAs or CIMA students if we didn't think that they would get the experience. So for me, it was quite important just because I know exactly what they studied. I know that the type of person that most likely studies CIMA and what their aspirations would be within their career. But then also just more importantly, just kind of giving back to, to the, what if you want to call it, the community, but like to the students who say like, listen, here's a place where you can come and get your CIMA experience. So almost like just to add to that kind of brand recognition within the country and ultimately, pushing the brand forward and really just vouching for the fact that, we know what CGMAs can do in the marketplace. And then really just punting that within our own company. Like we are UK-based company, like operational basis in Cape Town, but we originally founded in the UK. And that also made it like relatively easy for me to sell that to the board and, as a strategy. And ultimately we've seen the benefit of that. We've got like-minded people within our team in terms of, knowing exactly what everyone studied. And also like for the junior clerks and so on, just to be able to actually, ask the questions, be in an environment where they get supported within the CIMA designation. So I think that's really it's kind of just like a nice environment of, support all around, but also kind of knowing what your colleagues can do and what the potential are.
Yes. I liked in our previous discussion, you said something, it's not inferior to CAs, it's just a different career decision.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Yeah, I think, it's obviously like it's evolved. I think Pete mentioned that earlier as well. I think it's definitely evolved within the market. I think it really comes down to getting enough CIMA students into the marketplace for people to see what they're able to do. I speak for myself, but I think like a lot of people will vouch for the fact that, I studied like B accounting, like with the idea to become like a CA as well. But I think ultimately, like a lot of people just did that because it was a means to an end to ultimately be in a position where they would, do what CIMA students are doing, at the end of the day. So it was more just like, that was kind of the status quo within South Africa. And that's why people become CAs. No one actually wanted to do auditing. Like there's probably like 10% of people that really wanted to become auditors. But that was just the route they had to take, to get there. And I think CIMA ultimately offered an alternative to that. I think it's really just growing in that sense.
Yes, yeah, very well put. I like that. So, okay, so I'm a little bit in love with the fact that you're in tech space, and 8 years ago, cybersecurity wasn't even a big thing.
Yeah.
And it was mostly really as it impacted finance and maybe a little bit of cloud computing and this and that. But things in the tech world, you said it moves quickly. You said not quickly, it moves at warp speed. So tell me a little bit in that environment, your role at Grove and your role as a management accountant in the tech space.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really, because it's a fast-paced environment, like ultimately, like we as a company, like we sell other people's products for them. So like first of all, we're like a sales organization. And what the benefit of that is obviously being able to identify products that will do well within our, current or existing customer base and also the market that we sell into. But really also having to be like at the forefront of identifying what the trends are within the tech space. So about 4 years ago, we identified that cybersecurity will be the next thing, the next big thing in terms of like what people would actually need on an enterprise level. So we pivoted into that kind of arena. It really was something that was easy to do based on the fact that we've already got a large existing customer base all across the globe, and like we knew that this is something that they'd move into. But that is, it's really like a cycle that we need to carry on doing. Like every year, we need to like look at the product portfolio that we've got, identify what our customers need, and then what we think they will need in the future without them even knowing. Like and starting that process of onboarding those products onto our portfolio. Obviously, reaching out to those suppliers in terms of the actual guys that develop the products, and becoming a reseller for them or like a partner for them, and then really then just pushing that into our existing customer base and also into new customers. So I think from a management accounting perspective, it really comes down to the analysis of timings of when those cycles will start, and also like just from it's a very diverse kind of like role that you would play, but it comes down to like even negotiations of contracts, the actual how you'd market that, and also just looking at the margins if it makes sense, ultimately in the long term, like to actually go through the whole process of onboarding a product and also getting all our teams skilled up in those on those products from a kind of implementation and a support perspective as well. So there's various aspects of almost like tick boxes that one would need to tick in order to make sure that a product is the right fit for Grove and our customers.
You explained to me, which I quite like, you said when you introduce new technology, there's no competitors out there, so you can set the price. And then you have to understand the market, and you have to understand the product, and you must know what the market will pay for it, and you must ensure it's commercially viable and that it's a good fit, and you must work out the margins and then negotiate with suppliers and then price it differently for the different regions and analyze actual profitability, and that would all fall into your role. And because the moment it's not that new anymore, a lot of, what did you say? You said it's a race to the
bottom, basically.
Lowest price to the yes, race to the bottom, and then you must be ready with the new product. And I think that story very nicely illustrates the scope of the CIMA qualification. So I quite liked it when you explained that. So I definitely see a lot of touch points with the CIMA syllabus. You've got marketing, negotiation, pricing, strategy. And the nice thing about CIMA, of course, or the CIMA syllabus, is that it's a business qualification and not a finance qualification. Hey? Yeah.
So I think the one thing, and maybe just to add to that, I think the one thing that's very important for for the students to know is that, and this is kind of my opinion, so it might not be everyone's thought on this, is that ultimately, like from management accounting perspective, your base is always like the accounting side, right? So you really need to like lay that foundation quite strongly, like within your career, and then you can build on top of that. I think it's quite hard to, ultimately, maybe start from an analyst or a consulting perspective, and then actually being able to move through the ranks, quite quickly, because I think that foundation is really relevant, like throughout your career. So really like establishing the accounting side of things, and you can build on top of that. But I think the moment there is a lack in that foundation, like I think you really struggle, like, going forward in your career, because there's just like that bit of not having gone through it yourself, where you will struggle to like lead a team, and you struggle to, solve problems within a finance team. Because ultimately, like, we don't function outside of finance. Like, we are finance, and we work with just normal accountants, etc. But I think ultimately it comes down to like us having to really understand that bit, and then adding the value on top of it.
You say to me, we're a small company, and you might not be the CEO, but you provide the CEO with all the different data points he or she would need to consider. And when you're in a small company, you bleed into each other's roles, and at the end of the day, it comes down to data and reference point, and the management accountant's function is to provide the decision makers, be it the CEO, the board, or various and assorted people, with the right reference point. You said we support the CEO, and I really like that when you said that. We are slightly behind schedule. I'm going to close with my final, with Cal. Cal, I'm closing with you. Just a final word from you to our students who are studying, who are stuck, who may be feeling a little bit hopeless or need inspiration. Is it worth it? What can you say? Can you say something super inspiring? or just something normal to help existing students stay the course?
Yeah, I think absolutely it's worth it. I think everyone on this call today has kind of really demonstrated the different facets of SEMA and how you go into a business and you don't just have your head in a spreadsheet anymore. You're a real partner to the business. Your job really is adding value. I think from a business point of view, I think what SEMA students bring and SEMA accountants bring is a value like no other. It's brilliant. From a personal point of view, I know it's hard going. I only become chartered last year, so I know the qualification can be tough at times, but have a plan, stick to it, always make sure you're moving forward. If things don't go to plan, that's fine, just replan. I think Eugene kind of said it where, okay, well, things go wrong and then that's okay. It's okay to have a bit of adversity, but you can kind of either bury your head or take a step back and keep going. So absolutely worth it. It's amazing qualification. I think every day the kind of the remit of SEMA members is growing, and what we do is different, and there's so much variety, but yeah, a lot of reward.
And if anybody feels stuck and need a helping hand, can they call you? No, I'm just joking.
Always add me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to thank all of you, Pete, Nuan, Cal, Eugene, Botwe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.